first we're gonna do is we're gonna start a GitHub repository, and we're gonna put some example code there, and that then we're gonna enable some tests for. So here I'm gonna work with this particular data file. There's a tab separated data file, and I'm gonna try to calculate normalize or like demeaned age from this data file. And to do this, I'm going to write a simple Python versions of this Python script, and I would like you to do the same thing. So, okay, let me just see if I have this whole Git thing. All right. What is important is that you should do it in a Git repository that is synced with GitHub. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually going to go to GitHub. I assume that if you are in this track, you have some familiarity with Git and GitHub. Does anyone need some help and introduction to Git very quickly? All right, great. So I'm going to start a new repository. I'm going to call it Python testing Neurohackweek 17. No, not 18. Okay, create a repository, and here I can basically do the following. I can just clone it. Okay, I've got this empty repository, which is not very fascinating so far. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a file, demeanage.py, and I'm going to copy this into it. And then I'm going to add it and push it to GitHub. So, do atom. Okay, create a new file, demeanage.py, paste the code. Let me just quickly explain what it does. Imports NumPy, read the text file, and then calculates the mean age by calculating the sum dividing by the length, and then saves the initial age minus the mean in a new file, and then it prints done with an exclamation point. So far so good. We also need to have the actual file, so I'm going to download this file. It's in the instructions, so I'm going to do vget. Okay, download the file. So this is how my little repository looks like. Got my script, got my participants file, and now let me try to run this. Python demean. Boom, done. Yay. My complicated analysis worked. I'm ready to publish the results, but I have to push it to GitHub. Yes, I'm going to do git add demean age and participants, and then git commit initial commit science, here I come. Okay, and I'm going to push it. Okie dokie. So, if all of this was successful, if I refresh my repository, I'm going to see my source file and the little example data set. Okay, so done, good, okay, ahead of schedule. very good. I'm gonna give you guys a couple of minutes to get to this stage, and then we're gonna see how can we make machines to run this script with this example input data every time we make any change to the code. So this way we will get an alert or an email whenever some of our changes broke the code on the example dataset. And this is what we call a smoke test. But before we get there, you need to get to this stage.
So I
Yes.
Could you tap back to
Could you say it again, please?
just tap back to Putty and see the Zoom trap?
Oh, okay. Let me just, is that better?
Perfect.
This is perfect, okay. Is that better? Oh, yeah. Okay. Who got their code and example data set on GitHub? Your script will not run.
Says the int object's not iterable. I don't know what that means.
Oh, okay. So this has been written in Python 3.
That's fine.
Which might be the reason why it doesn't work. But maybe we can fix it. It's only 5 lines of code, isn't it?
Yeah, mine is in Python 3, though there's an error.
What error do you have?
Same error, int object is not accessible.
Probably you should update. Try to update NumPy.
And you use exactly the same. Wow, reproducibility, huh?
Install minus. Install minus.
Okay. Yeah, I think it might need, you need to update your NumPy.
I just updated NumPy and I'm still having.
Sorry?
I just updated NumPy and it's still in the error.
I just learned about history.
How did you graduate from high school? Okay. Thank you. So you got it with, what version of Python do you have?
2.7.
Okay, so it must be an interaction between Python and NumPy. So you need Python 3.0 to do this. Sorry?
I think it's just the print statement.
Yeah.
Python 3 is the print, it's print function.
Yes.
So Python 2, well,
Okay, so for, okay, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, my NumPy update worked.
Okay, so if you have an error, it could be 2 things. Either NumPy, so you have to update NumPy, or it's the print statement. So if you have Python 2.0, it should look this way instead of
It's
this.
working in Python 2 as well.
Yeah,
So just print list, so it should work print.
it's my mistake.
It was his mistake. Okay, cool. So you have an error, update NumPy, and then it will work. I'm sorry, I thought that people used Python 3. You can also run this whole thing in the Jupyter Hub instance that will have Python 3 online the way Ariel demonstrated. So if you, for some reason, don't want to update it right now, you can just go to Neuroimaging Neurohackweek, Jupyter Hub. I already logged in, and oh wait, my server got killed. So I'm gonna start my thing. Did it work? Did it work?
I updated my.
Okay, updating NumPy. This is like brushing your teeth. All right. So, okay, let's assume it works, and or I hope it works. And did you manage to push it to GitHub?
I don't get that.
All right. So who else is getting an error running the script? Error running the script? Over there. Did you update NumPy? Could you try update NumPy?
There's a command in Slack to update NumPy.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, this is updated. I updated it with Conda.
Yes,
Everything was quite clever, yeah.
It was
All right. Everyone else for whom it does work, put it into GitHub. Okay. Okay, let's work. Let's work. Let's work.
Update NumPy.
So, do you have Conda or
Anaconda.
you have Anaconda? So you can do Conda install NumPy. There we go. How about you guys? How's it going? NumPy? How's the NumPy business going?
I'm using Conda. No.
Yeah, so that should be pretty straightforward. What about you?
Yeah, I'm still up. Yeah.
All right. Hi. Are you just after us, aren't you? Okay, we'll try to finish on time.
No worries.
You don't want to do it?
No,
You should be psyched.
I'm super psyched.
Okay.
But soccer's pretty fun.
I know, but it's a tough crowd, I tell you.
Yeah.
Just like, only 20% of the jokes work.
Yeah.
So, it's tricky. Oh wait, this is all recorded. Damn. Okay. So, hand in the air if you manage to run the script and push it to GitHub. Okay, we almost reached enough people. So let me help those that are still getting there. And maybe those that finish can find someone that they can help. You guys.
Yeah.
So what's the
we just
issue?
have a Conda issue. So maybe the other stuff works.
Find Python.
Sorry?
Her Anaconda
My
installation.
Anaconda on the thing, so I can run it if I go in the Conda terminal. There, everything fine. It runs also without error and push
Yeah,
it.
that's good.
But how do you find it in your command prompt?
Anaconda is
Because I usually
You would have to configure it to, yeah, that's sort of,
This part.
as long as it works there, it's good.
Install it.
this is a weird Chris.
Well,
NumPy.
yeah.
The part. I just know default part was
Stopped iteration.
Just give up and go with someone else.
It was giving her a load text error before she updated it as well.
Okay,
I've never seen anything like that.
it's not worth it. Just
Does not compute.
keep going.
Yeah, all right.
but you have to define.
Okay, in the interest of time, we're gonna move on. If you didn't manage to get it running, find someone nearby you to team up, and you can work together. Okay, so that was step one, and right now we have our very sophisticated analysis. We can run it. How do we know it finished without errors? Because there are no errors printed on the terminal and the exit code is 0. So how can we automate this? So we're going to use a service called Circle CI, where CI stands for Continuous Integration, and this is a free service that can run any arbitrary code each time you push something to your GitHub repository. And what we're gonna use it for, to run our smoke test each time we push to repository. So each time we make a change to our code, it will run our very simple test. And to make this happen, we need to configure it. So I prepared a configuration script for you, and it has the following lines. So first it tells Circle that we should use Python 3.6.1, and as you notice, the keyword there is Docker. So actually, you can run your tests on this platform using any Docker image. So all the stuff that you learned about creating custom images in the previous session is applicable here. So if your tests are more sophisticated and require different custom software, you can put it in a container and tell Circle to run your container. And then we're going to install NumPy inside this container. We're going to create a virtual environment and install NumPy. And then we're going to run our script.
And the Docker image address is from the Docker Hub.
Yes, so that Docker image is from Docker Hub. And you see it's from the Circle CI namespace, and they've got a bunch of different images for different languages. I can write tests for Ruby or Julia or R and different things. Or I can write my own Docker container combining things. Yes?
So what if you want to use an image which have Python and R based? Do you append something to that Circle C and R based?
So you have two options. You can create your own image that has those two things and push it to Docker Hub, and then it would have a name, and you would use that name here. That's option number one. And option number two is the same way I'm here dynamically installing extra dependencies instead of grabbing them from a container. You can do the same thing. Does that answer your question? Yeah. All right. Perfect. So what I have to do is create a file called circleCI.config.yml, which stands for YAML. Sorry. What?
Ignoring.
Create a new file. This file is empty, and then I'm going to copy the content of this config file. Which turns out very big, but that's it. Okay, I saved the file. And then I need to add this file to Git. So I'm going to git add circleCI config, git commit, git push. Okay, so I push this file. If I go to my repository, this file is here. It's great. But so far I don't see any tests or any messages. Nothing is really happening. So why is that? Because I have to tell Circle that tests should be running on this repository. So how do I do this? I go to circleci.com. And I press go to app. And here you might need to log in. I was already logged in. You can log in with your GitHub account. And I press projects. All of this is described on the web page. And I want to add a project. And there's a bunch of projects. Neurohackweek. It's going to choose this one. I'm going to click setup project. And I'm going to keep the defaults, which is run it on Linux, in the cloud on Linux, and use version 2.0 of their platform, which has all the features of 1.0, but extra confusion. Very useful. And then I'm just going to click Start Building. And that launches the first iteration of our tests. And on this website, you can see how the machine is being configured. And soon we're going to see the results of our tests. So it would be great if you could at least manage to get to this point. So once again, we need to add the config file, which goes into .circle/config.yml. And the content of this file is as this, verbatim. And then we need to add this file to our Git repository, commit it, and push it to GitHub. And then we have to log into circleci.com. And after logging in on our dashboard, create projects, add projects, and start building. And then when it finishes, you're going to see something like this, where my little script got run not by me, but by machines in the cloud, which work for me now. It's very cool. That means that if any part of this multi-line bash command fails, all of it should fail.
How do we log into Circle CI?
You go to circleci.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then log in. And you can log in with GitHub. Yes?
What's the difference between the .circle CI and just a circle CI? Like dot is used for hidden files.
Yes, so they've changed their the place where they store config files from version 1.0 to version 2.0, and this is the new place where they expect config files.
So it's going to be in a hidden folder?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what they expect and recommend in their current documentation, although I do suspect they're going to look for both. Dan, did it green? It did run, it didn't crash, it's great. Okay.
What are limitations of free version of this service?
So you can run at most 4 different jobs or repositories in parallel. Otherwise, they're going to get scheduled one after another. A single step, so that's a single box here, or a single line in Circle CI, cannot run longer than 2 hours. But that means you can, stack multiple steps together, and that can run for quite a while. And finally, the machines they run it on, I think they have 4 gigs of RAM. In terms of disk space, I don't quite know.
Add a project.
Right, but it doesn't show up.
Try searching here for the repository.
I did. Did I not set it up correctly? Is this not?
No, this should show up. It should definitely show up.
Can you refresh the page?
Oh, there it is. All right, cool. So sometimes the project might not show up immediately. If you refresh the page, it will show up. Okay, who's got tests running? And it's running. Okay, almost there. So for those who got tests running, what you can do is see how it will run if you update your project. So let's do a silly change, and well, this was not enthusiastic enough for my taste, so I added extra exclamation marks. Git commit am more enthusiastic, I don't know if you spell it this way, and git push, and now I've pushed it, and see, a new job showed up, and it's queued and it's running, and I made the change, I pushed it, and automatically the tests are running, and that's going to happen each time you push a new update to your code. And it seems that the tests are passing even with the very enthusiastic print statement. Okay, is anyone having any problems getting to this? Can I help somehow? Yes?
So is the config file kind of like the most important part? That's like where the real magic is happening in terms of developing what your tests are going to do?
No, the config file is just the translation. It just tells Circle what are your tests. But your tests will be usually defined in different files. You're going to have a dedicated Python file running unit tests, for example.
So this is like a way for us to, if we already have unit tests that exist,
yeah,
we can do this to like be checking them on GitHub instead of doing them manually.
Exactly. This is exactly it. Okay, so in the interest of time, we're going to skip one step. I'm just going to very quickly talk about it. So here, we would like to add more tests, which basically means that you can run it on multiple different example data sets. So basically that gives you a bit more coverage. Maybe you have different sets of like edge cases, and you can have multiple lines in this command, in this config file that corresponds to different tests. So this is how you would do it here. It requires a little change to your code. I'm just gonna very quickly do this. So I'm basically reading the input file from the command line now instead of having it hard-coded, and that allows me in the config file to do this, and that means I can parameterize my tests, and I can have two of them. I can run it on two different input files, and then I can do this and can generate fake input data. For example, here I can change it to something else. Basically, I'm showing you how you can run your tests on multiple different input data sets. And now I can add this. And if I push this, unless I screwed anything up, I would be able to see my new tests running. Oh no!
Well, it's red.
It is red because it failed, because what?
S on the file name.
Aha! Very good. This is like extreme programming, isn't it? Okay. So I made a typo, but this is also a good example of how a failed test looked like. It's red. And actually, I will also get an email each time a test fails, and each time a particular application or repository gets fixed. Can I quickly show that?
Chris, is this how you like monitor how other people are doing when they're contributing to your Git repos?
Yes. So I can configure it. I can set up my own tests on this repository and configure Circle to run those tests on every pull request to my repository. So if I go here and I go to advanced settings, I can go build forked pull requests. And now, each time someone makes a pull request to this repository, those tests will be run on it. And actually in GitHub, it will show me a green tick if the tests are passing. Okay, so I have multiple tests now. But this is just a smoke test. We know whether it breaks, we know whether there's a fatal error, but not much more. But another thing that you can easily implement in your day-to-day sciencing routine are assertions. So assertions are statements about things that should always be true in your code base. So each time you write some code, there are probably some internal variables, and you can check the state of those variables and make sure that they're within range of what they should. For example, maybe I calculate a p-value somewhere, and if my p-value is a negative number, something really went wrong. Yes, so I can add those assertions into my code to make sure that everything is okay. So I'm going to add an assertion into my code, and I'm going to make sure assert that mean age is lower than 100, because I know this population wasn't that old. And it's also higher than 10. Okay. Seems reasonable. And that's something you can add every so often in your code just to make sure that internally everything is consistent. Doesn't mean you have to write dedicated tests, but this is also a way of improving the quality of your code. Okay, so I do this and I do push, and again everything automatically will be run in the cloud, and we'll see whether the assertions make any difference. Any questions about assertions? Do you use assertions? Have you already used assertions before? A little bit? Right? Oh no, it's red. It seems that the mean age is above 100. Why is that, I ask? Can anyone spot the problem with my code? Sorry?
Is a 13,000-year-old in this data set too?
Could you say it again? Sorry, I didn't.
We came up before this 13,000-year-old outlier.
The 13,000-year-old outlier? No, it's not that.
Might be.
It's not years, it's some other. It's not years of age, it's months of age.
Let's have a look at this file. So the first column is participant, the second column is age, I'm grabbing the third column. So just using the wrong column from the file. It's an easy mistake, but I only caught it because I used assertions. And otherwise, everything was calculated, and I got a regressor and stuff like that. But you could equally well pick outliers using this technique. Yes?
When you run assertions, do you normally do it in a similar way that you do unit tests? Like you run an assertion for your functions, or are you running it within each function? You're putting assertions depending on what inputs you have.
I run it within each function, but they're not conditional, so I don't run different assertions depending on inputs. They're just assertions that just validate the expected status of your variables at that given moment. So they're not explicit unit tests, but because of that, they're easier to incorporate into your workflow because everyone is writing scripts to analyze some piece of data. All that you need to do now, extra on top of that, is just write assertions every so often. Every 5th or 10th line, you make sure that the internal state is what you expect it to be. It's not as good as unit tests, but it's much easier and quicker to implement. Does anyone have any ideas how can I write this code in a less buggy way?
Probably you should use pandas.
Yes. So exactly. I have column names. Why not use column names? So I can import pandas now, and I can do pd load CSV, and what was it? The file. And I have to specify the separator, and I can just call this by h. Let me check if this runs. Read CSV, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No problems. It works. So now I have to do one more thing though. I have to install pandas in my config. So I do git push. Okay. Let's have a look, and hopefully me calling this commit fixed wasn't just wishful thinking, and it actually will turn green. Okay, so, and it's fixed. Yay. So let us quickly sum up what we learned. So we learned about the assertion test, and I'm not going to talk too much about the unit test. I'm happy to discuss it after this meeting on how to, different frameworks for unit tests. Basically, the main difference between what we did here and unit tests is when you write the unit test, you pick a particular piece of your script of your code, and you try to think what are the expected outputs for a given set of inputs, and then you run this function in an automatic way. There are frameworks to do it, and check whether the output that you expected is what this function really returns. So that requires a little bit extra work because you have to define those pairs of inputs and outputs and run those functions, and sometimes defining them or actually setting them up with all of the different specific variables that need to be around them or objects can be tricky. But if you do smoke test, continuous integration, and assertion tests, you are above average. And just to say a little bit about our protagonist, Dr. Chang or Professor Chang, his career was not ruined. He went on to republish some of these papers that were retracted and is a successful scientist. So that also speaks to the fact that mistakes are not necessarily shattering, and if we handle them correctly, things can turn out well. And I hope that with the tools that I showed you, you will be able to increase the quality of your code and be exposed to human mistakes less than you were before. And this is all from me. If we have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I'll be around all week long. Yes?
What's the... I've seen like a lot of projects use Travis CI. Is there
Yes.
a clear difference between them, or do you have a recommendation there?
Yes, so advantages, so there are differences, yes. So Travis allows you to run jobs on Mac for free. Circle makes you pay for running things on Mac. So if you care about Mac compatibility, you can use Travis. Travis also allows you to do some more fancy things with Docker, such as Docker and Docker things. If you're into this sort of inception, mind-blowing things, Travis, yeah. The big disadvantage of Travis is that the limits on how long a single step or the whole job can run are much more severe. So running longer things on Travis is not possible. So those are the differences. Yes?
Do you have a preferred format or module for doing Python unit tests, like doc tests, or I don't know, I hear about a bunch of them.
Yeah, we're using PyTest right now, and it's pretty good. They're really not that complex. They just, you have a template for writing a test class, and they just run them. So they're not. You cannot go really too wrong about this. Yes.
Are there any books, websites, or other resources you would recommend to learn more about testing?
The book I've mentioned before, Code Smells, is pretty good, but there's nothing on top of my head that I could recommend that I had closer contact with. But I can dig up a few things and try to come up with better recommendations. But doing proper testing of code is an art and is a job in itself. Many companies, software companies, hire people specifically to write tests. There's a job description or a set of job positions at Microsoft, for example, software developer and tests. And those are engineers that their sole purpose is to break other people's code and basically write the best test they can. And they are as important in every other engineering position there, and paid exactly the same amount. And writing good unit tests that check for the right edge cases is not easy. So don't get discouraged if your tests are not perfect. Okay, so that's all from me, and I think we ran out of time. And next up is Anisha.